It's not just a marshmallow. It's a promise that waiting, hoping, and believing can lead to something greater. Sometimes, the smallest decisions shape the biggest dreams. Would you take one marshmallow now, or can you trust the wait for something greater? The answer shaped Ethan's future and can shape yours too.
The Marshmallow Choice.
A curious 7-year-old boy named Ethan Carter lived in the quiet town of Maplebrook, nestled between golden wheat fields and whispering pine forests. Like most boys his age, Ethan was imaginative, talkative, and occasionally impulsive. His favorite pastime was building Lego cities and pretending he was mayor, superhero, and city planner all in one. One spring afternoon, his first grade teacher, Mrs. Kessler, announced a surprise. "Today, we're going to play a game," she said with a mysterious smile. The children's chatter stopped. "You'll each have a turn to sit in the room alone with a marshmallow. You can eat it right away if you want, but if you wait for 15 minutes without eating it, you'll get 2 marshmallows." A murmur of excitement filled the classroom. Marshmallows were a rare treat. When it was Ethan's turn, he was led into a small room with beige walls and a ticking clock. A white marshmallow sat on a small wooden table, soft and pillowy. The moment the door closed behind him, Ethan's eyes locked on it. It practically called to him. He sat in the chair, his legs swinging. 5 minutes felt like forever. He poked the marshmallow, sniffed it, and even licked it once before jerking his hand back in guilt. His imagination kicked in. What if the marshmallow is magic? What if waiting gives me not just 2, but a whole bag? He distracted himself by reciting the alphabet backward, pretending he was guarding the treasure. Finally, the door opened. Mrs. Kessler clapped her hands. "You did it, Ethan. 2 marshmallows for you." He beamed with pride as he walked back to class, holding both marshmallows like trophies. That moment, small as it seemed, stayed with him for years. By the time Ethan reached middle school, the Marshmallow Test had faded into a fuzzy childhood memory. Now he faced bigger temptations: video games instead of homework, hanging out with friends instead of helping his mom, sleeping in instead of practicing piano. One afternoon, his best friend Lucas showed up with a new gaming console. "Come over. We'll have a Call of Duty marathon all weekend." Lucas grinned. Ethan hesitated. He had a science project due Monday that counted for 30% of his grade. He glanced at the unfinished poster board on his desk, and then back at Lucas's excited face. "Can we do it next weekend?" Ethan asked. Lucas rolled his eyes. "Dude, it won't be new next weekend." But Ethan remembered the marshmallows. He didn't know why, but something clicked in him. "If I finish the project today, we can play all Sunday." "Fine, nerd," Lucas joked. "But you're missing out." Ethan stayed up that Friday night working on his project. It wasn't easy. He really wanted to go. But by Sunday evening, he had a solid A and enough time left to crush zombies with Lucas. He was learning that delaying pleasure wasn't about sacrifice, it was about strategy. However, high school was a different beast. Peer pressure was sharper, emotions were higher, and consequences felt much more real. Ethan had grown into a bright student, known for his quiet leadership and steady focus. But junior year brought an avalanche: SAT prep, varsity soccer, AP classes, part-time work, and most dangerously, a girl named Madison Lane. Madison was everything Ethan admired: bold, bright, and full of fire. She noticed him after he won a debate competition, and soon they were texting late into the night. Homework started slipping. Sleep vanished. Practices became lazy jogs. One night, His dad walked into his room to find him half asleep in his calculus textbook. "You okay, son?" "I think I'm falling for Madison," Ethan mumbled. His dad chuckled and sat beside him. "Falling is easy. Building something strong takes time. You've got dreams, Ethan. Don't throw them off course." That night, he thought long and hard. He cared about Madison, but not at the cost of his future. They talked the next day, and he asked to take a step back from the constant communication. She respected him for it, even admired his focus. Surprisingly, their relationship became more grounded, not less. Ethan never forgot the lesson. Even love, as sweet as it is, needs patience and perspective. Ethan's discipline paid off. He was accepted into a top-tier university on a scholarship. He chose to major in behavioral psychology, ironically drawn in by that marshmallow experiment that had once tested his patience. College tested him more than anything before. Freedom was intoxicating. Parties, clubs, and the absence of his parents meant temptations lurked everywhere. But Ethan stayed grounded. He joined a campus research lab that happened to be replicating the Marshmallow Test with new variables money instead of sweets, peer influence, and even digital rewards. As he worked with children from different backgrounds, he began to see how much environment, not just willpower, shaped self-control. He began to ask deeper questions. Why do some kids wait and others don't? What about trauma, poverty, or hunger? Were they fair tests at all? His professors noticed his insight and curiosity. Soon, he was co-authoring papers, leading discussions, and mentoring freshmen. But the actual test came in my senior year. Ethan was offered a job straight out of college, with a 6-figure salary at a tech firm designing behavioral apps. The offer was tempting money, status, stability, but deep down, he knew he wanted to pursue research, even if it meant a modest stipend and more years in school. He remembered the marshmallows again. "Too later," he whispered. He turned down the offer and applied to graduate school instead. 10 years later, Dr. Ethan Carter stood on the TEDx stage, confidently facing a packed audience. His talk, titled "The Marshmallow Isn't Everything," challenged the simplicity of the original test. He shared stories from his research children who couldn't wait because they had lived in shelters where food was never guaranteed, teens whose impulse control was shaped by early trauma, and adults who taught themselves self-regulation through mentorship and grit. "The Marshmallow Test taught us something profound," he said, pacing slowly. "But it also ignored a bigger truth. Self-control isn't just about waiting. It's about believing that what's coming is worth the wait and knowing it will actually come." For some kids, that certainty doesn't exist. He shared his story, to how the test affected him, how he grew, and how his choices, big and small, were shaped by the belief that better was possible. The crowd erupted in applause. Later, a high school teacher from Maplebrook sent him a letter. It read, "Dear Ethan, I never forgot the day you waited for that marshmallow. I've used your example with dozens of students since. You showed that self-control isn't about being perfect. It's about staying true to your goal 7 when the world offers shortcuts. Thank you, Mrs. Kessler." Ethan eventually founded a nonprofit called Second Marshmallow, which focused on teaching emotional regulation, patience, and resilience to kids in underprivileged schools. The program included games, storytelling, mentorship, and yes, occasional marshmallow tests, but only as conversation starters. One day, while visiting a school in Chicago, a small boy named Bilal tugged at his sleeve. "Mr. Carter?" I waited the whole time," Bilal said proudly, holding 2 marshmallows. Ethan smiled. "How did you do it?" I kept thinking, maybe the second one will be even better, and I want to prove I can wait. Ethan knelt and looked him in the eye. That's the secret, Bilal. Believing in what comes next and believing in yourself. As he left the classroom, he realized that what had started as a simple test of willpower had become a lifelong lesson in trust, hope, and the invisible rewards of discipline. The marshmallow was never just candy. It was a promise,